This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Good morning, everybody. Tuesday, March the 3rd today. Great to be with you. Tim Powers in for the week. Thank you for joining us. We've got a jammed show of your thoughts and your conversations. I suspect a lot of them will focus both on the, not both, because there'll be more than two things. They'll focus on the speech from the throne, a report on the CBC, which I'll get to in a minute, done by Ariana Kelland on RNC, some officers who have left the RNC speaking out about burnout and things that forced them to make a decision to leave. We'll talk about that. The Briar, we'll talk about all of that. But I want to start with the speech from the throne, just because it is the big Newfoundland and Labrador news item. As we said yesterday, next to the budget, it is arguably the most important speech a government gives because it lays out the government's priority. What we saw yesterday, probably not surprising at all. It was effectively a restatement of what Premier Tony Wakeham and his team promised during the election campaign. Borrowing some of their words, they talked in the speech about prioritizing the cutting of taxes, investing in healthcare, and investing in healthcare and public safety. This speech yesterday touches on aspects of all of that. For example, the sugar tax now would be permanently removed. It was on pause by former Premier Hogan. Premier Wakeham is saying he will permanently remove it. He is talking about bringing in a basic exemption for income tax filers. So anybody who earns up to $15,000, the first $15,000 would not be subject to tax. That would be the highest basic exemption, I believe, in Atlantic Canada. Talking about a new child benefit, a new seniors benefit, talking about a disabilities advocate. In fact, they've moved on that already, bringing in a disabilities advocate. They brought the first piece of legislative requirement in yesterday, the first reading of a bill to do that. They moved to second reading. Has said that he's not as focused on balancing a budget. It is not, according to different media reports that I have read, not committing to balancing a budget over his first four-year term if he were to get a second term. But over the first 4 years, we've not seen that commitment yet. Maybe that comes in a budget, whether it be the first budget or a budget thereafter, first budget after this. We shall see. What you saw yesterday is a technique called flooding the zone, because the Premier says he wants to act with urgency and purpose. What does flood the zone mean? Well, you've heard it in the American context, and in the American context, it usually means a lot of propaganda and distraction. In the Canadian context, it means just push out all of the things you're going to do, all of the promises you're going to do, and have people catch on to them, because there have been people who've put their hand up and said, yeah, this is great, Premier, we want to see how you do here. The opposition parties rightly are saying, okay, a lot of promises here, we're going to keep score on the promises. But it seems that the Premier wants to drive a very newsy agenda. The positive with that is they seem to want to get a lot of things done. The negative with that is, can they get those things done, and how will they be scored? But you will politically manage that and tell them how they are doing. Important also to point out, in the speech from the throne, there was a commitment to hire more nurse practitioners, to lessen the reliance on agency nurses, to hire more police officers, both in the RNC and the RCMP. And rightly, I think Jim Dinn and John Hogan have asked, okay, how are we going to pay for all of this? Because when you cut taxes, which I support, don't get me wrong, and you invest in health care and you invest in public safety, you need money to pay for those things, because if you're cutting taxes, you're taking in less revenue. Well, A lot of it seems to be predicated not on the Churchill Falls MOU, which liberal promises of the past were going to be predicated on, I mean the election. This seems to be predicated on a revitalized oil and gas sector and a mining sector. This comes if you look at our news page today on VOCM, you'll see Premier has also said we should expect to hear something on Beta Nord soon. Beta Nord could have huge economic potential for the province, $14 billion oil project, but we'll see. Again, all part of flooding the zone. There's a lot of positive things in there, but how will they work out? I will add on the oil, which works for the enthusiasm that's now being expressed for a revitalized Beta Nord, because of course it was paused. The federal energy minister, I don't know why I couldn't say that word, energy minister, Tim Hodgson, said yesterday he's getting calls from countries about how Canadian energy producers can fill the gap amid the conflict in Iran, which is driving up oil and gas prices. Quoting Federal Energy Minister Tim Hodgson right now, he's saying the world right now is feeling incredibly insecure as a result of this weekend. So we're already have seen an uptick in inquiries about how quickly Canada can expand its clean and conventional energy projects. That may also be partially influencing what may happen with Beta Nord. So we'll watch all of that. If you want, I would like to, but we didn't seem to have great enthusiasm for it yesterday. We can continue to talk about what's going on in the Middle East, because now there are rocket attacks happening in Lebanon because the Israeli armed forces have gone after Hezbollah, who have been siding with Iran in response to the U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran to prohibit, as they have argued, the building of more nuclear weapons that could be detrimental to the world. Canada is now saying, yeah, we support the U.S. attacks, but we'd like a diplomatic solution. If you want to talk about that, let's go for it, because as we just saw, it impacts us in Newfoundland and Labrador. But I do want to go to this story, which I saw this morning, because I think this will get the tongues a-wagging, because it should. And to her credit, it is a story from Ariana Kelland at CBC. I want to make sure Ariana gets the credit. And the headline says, police officers are leaving the RNC. One former constable says it's time to talk about it. The constable in question is a former constable, Daniel Cadigan. His brother, of course, is James Cadigan. You will know James. He's been on this show and many shows. He was a spokesperson for the RNC. He also left the RNC and now works for Premier Wakeham. Reading from Ariana's story, Daniel Cadigan doesn't regret his 12-year policing career, not a bit, but the Logie Bay, Middle Cove, Outer Cove man says he doesn't regret leaving either. Somebody has to be there and protect the public, and I get that. I just decided it wasn't going to be me anymore. Cadigan says is one of 29 officers who have left their jobs with the RNC since 2023, many of whom were mid-career. RNC Chief Pat Roach says new officers are being brought in, and they are trying to hire experienced officers. I believe they've hired 11 of them. Cadigan worked as a decade as a patrol officer, later joined the RNC's Tactics and Rescue Unit. He spent the last 2 years of his police career with the Child Abuse and Sexual Assault section. He left in December 23. He said, my personal life, I think, became more of a hindrance. He now works in insurance. He says it's gotten more complex in policing because of things like the Jordan ruling and the time that's required to properly pull cases together in a timely manner. He says the workload has increased. It doesn't appear, though, the resources have increased at the same rate. He said what we can do to support more of our members and make them not burnt out, because burnout is just the reality of it. People are just so worked and burnt out that people are moving on. That's a concern. That's a concern we need to look at. Chief Roach doesn't duck that in his interview with Ariana. He says it's, he recognizes he's been policing for 40 years and they're trying to do more things to be attuned to people's needs. But the solution seems to be something we heard in the throne speech again, back to yesterday, and that is hiring more officers. Some saying they need as many as 80. That wasn't the provincial promise. Just looking at the chart that is there, since 2023 to December 2025, there have been 29 resignations and 21 retirements. 46 new officers have been hired, 11 experienced officers have been hired, so that brings you to 57, and there are 39 cadets in training. Let's try and talk about that. We're going to try and get Mike Summers from the RNC Association on to get his take on all of this, but it's vital. We obviously have police officers, enough of them, and officers that aren't burnt out and worn down because the requirements of their job are not getting easier. All that coming up. But how can we not talk about this? The Briar. What an epic night it was down there last night with Nathan Young playing Brad Gushu. Newfoundland versus Newfoundland. We're just trying to get Al Cameron on the phone from Curling Canada, but let me tell you, Brad Gushu won that game. I think it was 8-5. Again, yet another sellout down there. And the crowd was totally into it from everything that I've seen. And why wouldn't they be? How awesome is it to have two Newfoundland teams there? And when both skips were interviewed afterwards, extremely complimentary of each other, as you would expect. Brad Gushu talking about, Nathan Young's skills and ability and seeing him on the rise. Nathan Young talking about what Brad Gushu has done for curling and how he views him as a mentor. And we, the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, get to see all of that play out in front of us. And we'll have more of that to come. And I am delighted the man who was down there, I'm sure, last night, Al Cameron, Director of Communications, Media Relations for the Briar. Al, though you're not a Newfoundlander, we're going to adopt you. That must have been pretty special last night for everybody, was it, to see Brad play Nathan?
Oh, on so many levels. And in fact, Tim, it started before the game. We had a salute to the Memorial University Seahawks women's curling team that just won the U Sports Championships and will be over in China next year representing Canada at the World University Winter Games. And, of course, Brad's daughter plays for that team. And Jeff Thomas, the alternate for Team Young, is the coach of that team. So they got a standing ovation prior to the game. And I know that touched members of both teams, and that just kind of set the tone for what was a great evening last night at the Mary Brown Center.
And, Al, we talked on Friday on my program. It seems though everything is going very well, just from an event perspective right now. You've not been shagged up by the weather. I regret just saying that, Al, because I may have just shagged you up. I'll knock on wood in my head as I say that. The attendance
Sorry, I didn't hear anything there, Tim, so don't even worry about it.
You and the audience, Al. That's the way it goes, buddy. Look, but you've had sellouts every night, as we talked about. You were going to have those. I hear the Briar Patch is going well. But you tell me how. We're here on Tuesday, so we're right into the first third of the event, almost done. How is it from your perspective?
Well, listen, I mean, I can't see it's exceeding expectations because we had exceedingly high expectations coming here just based on the people involved. And then, of course, with Brad announcing his retirement and then such a compelling story with Team Nathan Young there as well, and Brad Jacobs coming home after the gold medal, we knew this was going to be a banger, as we like to say in the industry. So it's been fabulous. And like you say, the games with Team Gushu have been sold out. There are tickets available. I keep telling people it's not a sellout. There are tickets available. Curling.ca/tickets. We opened up a few here and there, so you've still got a chance to get in the door to watch this amazing event. And it's just been a blast. And again, what takes it to the next level, honestly, are the people behind the scenes. This group of volunteers that was assembled for this for the host committee is just spectacular. Just so accommodating, and they make our lives easy from a staffing perspective coming to these events.
Yeah, no doubt. And having Brad Jacobs here is also great because the Olympics just finished. So he's here. He's showing his gold medal. And I think he's very well respected from what curling, they appreciate the rivalries, but there is a great respect for the caliber of athlete, regardless if they're wearing a Newfoundland jersey or not. Right, Al?
Well, he wore the maple leaf and won gold. I mean, that's an amazing combination, isn't it? And there has to be respect for that. Obviously, we all remember what took place in the fall with Team Jacobs, and they kind of feed off that kind of energy when they're in a crowd. But it's great to see this crowd saluting them the way they are. That said, the big game is still out there when Team Guju will play against Team Jacobs, and that's coming up, and that's going to be something special. We all know that. That'll take place, I believe, Thursday afternoon, 2:30. Yeah, there it is. That's the big game that everybody's going to be looking forward to, the big battle of the Brads. The rivalry, obviously, but also, a spot, a favorable spot for the playoffs will certainly be on the line in that game as well. So you can't really look too far ahead. It's only Tuesday, but that is still just over 48 hours away to what should be a pretty lively atmosphere in the Mary Brown Center.
Yeah, and both Newfoundland teams play today as well. All right, before I let you go, thank you. I spoke to Stu Brown. What a character. Stu, the MC of the Briar Patch. Now, Al, I know there's a code. What happens in the Briar Patch stays in the Briar Patch. But do you got any good Briar Patch stories yet from the first few days?
All I know is it's real busy, and that's a good thing. And that's keeping everybody hopping over there. Again, Tim, being a professional like I am, it's research purposes only that I would visit there. But I am hearing good stories. Let's just leave it at that, shall we? And you know what? The morning after is not a time to reflect on the night before.
Al, if you run into Al, he'll show you the secret handshake so you get all the dirt on what's happening in the Briar Patch. Al, you're a good man. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Tim.
Take care. That is Al Cameron, Director of Media Relations and Communications for Curling Canada. All right, the lines are exploding. We'll come back and take your calls right after this.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Tim Powers in here for the week. Just going back to Ariana Kellen's story that is spawned by her interview with former RNC officer Daniel Cadigan. Some numbers that leap out at me. 29 officers, again, who resigned from the RNC between 2023 and 2025. Compared to the RCMP, they only had 7 resign. Of the 29 officers, I should say, who resigned from the RNC, 13 went to other police agencies. Now, there's all sorts of reasons for that. My next guest can tell us that. But my next guest also said this, and then I'll bring him on after. He said the RNC last year had the highest number of calls that we've ever responded to, up over 90,000 calls. When you look at firearms calls, home invasions calls, break-and enters and armed robberies, all that sort of stuff, that's a lot of stress on our members. Speaking for the members, an officer himself, Sergeant Staff Sergeant Mike Summers, President of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary Association. Mike, what are we to make of officers resigning? I mean, it happens in different forces. Is this something we should be concerned about? Just help us understand this.
Well, thanks for having me on, Jim. You are correct. It is something that happens in different forces right across the country. It's something that we haven't seen in the last, prior to the last 3 years. It would happen every now and then, but certainly in the last 3 years, we have seen more than normal. I do think it's something that we need to be concerned about because we are losing a lot of that corporate knowledge when you talk about officers with 10 plus years going elsewhere. If they're leaving to go outside of the policing industry and go elsewhere in the private industry, I see that, lifestyle changes, work demands, that sort of type thing. If they're leaving to go elsewhere and stay within the policing industry, I see that as a concern in that, I'd like for them to stay with us instead of going elsewhere.
Mike, I mean, your job is harder, I think, than it's ever been. It's always difficult to be a police officer, but I think people know that going in. But, I mean, you've been an officer for a long time. How has it changed? How has it changed for you and for your members over the last couple of decades?
Well, as I said there, or as you mentioned, certainly with the amount of work. If you look at last year, like I said in that article, we're up over 90,000 calls for service. So the workload on the officers has changed. You're not able to go out and do as much proactive policing and drive around the neighborhood and stop into the corner store and talk to the owners and that sort of type thing. A lot of your time on street patrol is going from call to call to call. And those calls that years ago, be it a break-and-enter call or an assault call or something like that, years ago that used to take me probably, 45 minutes or something, an hour to do. Those calls are a lot more strenuous on our officers and take a lot more of our officers' time, especially when you have to go around now looking for everything's being videoed these days. So you go around and look for CTV video and all that sort of type thing. So the demands on the officers are a lot more than what we were back years ago, and a lot more strenuous. Everything's under scrutiny a lot more so than it was years ago.
Yeah, indeed, that is the case, and we can all attest to watching any newscast at night, and anything that involves the police usually does involve showing some camera video that is either officer worn or otherwise. So get that aspect of it. You are suggesting we need 80 new officers. I think in the throne speech yesterday, as you know, the new premier is promising new police officers, but if I remember the election promise, it's nowhere near 80. Why the number 80? And that's the first question. How do you react to yesterday's throne speech, Mike?
Well, that number 80, Tim, gets us up to roughly around the police-to-population ratio.
Okay.
If we want to get our numbers up to the national police-to-population ratio, our force numbers need to be up somewhere around 470 members. So that's where the 80 comes from. And if we could get up to those numbers, if we could get up to the police-to-population ratio, that there would then relieve some of those stresses that I just mentioned on the officers. Certainly the frontline officers out responding to calls. If we had more officers out in the patrol cars, boots on the ground, if up in CID we had more officers able to do those complex investigations, that relieves some of that workload on the officers who are still there now and makes that work-life balance a little bit easier. To comment on the second part, unfortunately I haven't heard all of the speech from the throne yet, but I do know that that the PCs, when they ran for office, that was one of the pillars, those three pillars that they were speaking about. Public safety was one of them. And obviously, we're a big part of that public safety, along with the other parts of the justice portfolio that the minister holds, corrections and all that. But we are a big part of that portfolio.
All right, we'll leave it there, Mike. Thank you for making time for us. You and your officers stay safe on the streets. We appreciate the work you do.
Thank you very much for having me on.
All right, take care. That is Mike Summers. Mike, of course, is the president of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary Association. All right, speaking of the speech from the throne, let's talk to Tom Davis, Councillor Tom Davis. Tom, you've got a few things you want to say about the throne speech. Fire away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
See, I knew it. You know what? This morning I forgot to tell you because I got right into the rant and the ramble, and then we talked to Al and Mike. This morning I was going to get a tea at Tim Hortons, and a black cat went in front of me, and then I came home and I spilled the tea. There's some gremlins out there because there were gremlins there a moment ago because we're going to talk to Tom Davis, and we had a little technical issue, but now we've got Tom. Tom, sorry I blame the black cat and the spilled tea, but you are now with us. Tell us about your take on the speech from the throne.
Well, I want to start with a couple of city things, if that's okay with you, Tim.
Go for it.
First of all, I had a resident reach out to me yesterday leaving the convention center And there's some uneven concrete as you transition out, and this person fell down, and apparently someone observing saw 3 different people fall down.
Really?
So I've brought it to staff's attention, but there's a lot of people coming and going through the Briar Patch and in and out of the convention center, so I just want to put a big flag on that and spread the word, everyone, please.
Yeah, and if you are enjoying yourself at the Briar Patch, you want to be a little bit more aware, too. It may not just be the concrete. I can say that, Tom. You can't. Go ahead.
As well, we're doing some consultations with the residents about a couple of neighborhood plans. One is Rennie's River, and the other is Central and Muddy Pond. And upcoming on Wednesday night, there is a in-person at St. John's Community Farmers Market. As well, there's virtual, and there is ways you can consult. So go to Engage St. John's, everyone who's interested. There's some great feedback so far, but they've got like work-in-progress plans for people to look at, and we want your feedback, so please step up.
Okay, thank you. All right, throne speech? You got a third city.
One more thing, sorry. Weather-related parking ban is still on for people's residents. A reference that's outside the downtown core means you can't park on the street at any time. Got to get the cars off. Hopefully that's going to go away very soon once our staff and contractors get the roads widened.
Okay, good man. Thank you for those updates.
Okay. Hat off now, not a counselor, just speaking of my own personal opinion.
Okay.
Very important for people to realize that a lot of my thoughts are not obviously shared by my council colleagues or anybody else probably in the province, but here we go.
Well, we've got a space for him here, Tom, so let him rip.
I appreciate it. So the big challenge, as I became pretty outspoken during COVID and the snow and the snowmageddon, and my opinions are formed by just observation, I guess, just looking at it and wondering where the adults in the room are anymore, and whether that's poor old the RNC trying to deal with the challenges that are in our communities and the RCMP, but also in the way we govern ourselves and specifically the messaging that we send out to our residents. And it's so important that when we craft our messages, Prime Minister Carney says we need to name reality. And I think in Newfoundland and Labrador, for way too long, our politicians have been either afraid or maybe unaware. I don't know which it is. But once again, we have a throne speech, which does have some aspirational things in it. This is not me throwing rocks. I know they're all trying their best. They live in this world. They go around and knock on doors, and they hear. I think they hear the feedback that it's the growth of the seeds that have been planted by previous governments, and that is the job of government is to save people. And when they speak, I feel, and I've said this for a long time, we need to call on people to save themselves. And government's job is to create an environment where people can do that. Because if you're a parent, Tim, I'm a parent, and if the message to your adult children is, run your credit cards up, don't look after yourself physically or nutritionally, we're going to save you. We're going to bankrupt you and future generations because it's not your fault, the situation that you're in. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't all be there for people. But I would love to hear speeches that said something to the effect of, let's think upstream. Let's work on prevention, personal responsibility.
It's really interesting, Tom, you're raising this today. I don't know where I saw it yesterday, but Wales is a country, a region that is arguably has some comparability to Newfoundland culturally, industrially. They have a commissioner for, I only knew this yesterday, commissioner for the future generations, and that person's job is to have those hard conversations. So it's a bit of a deflection by the politicians, but they have this commissioner who is supposed to say, all right, if we don't do X, Y, and Z, we're going to be in trouble. Almost like a Moya Green type figure, if you will. But I'll let you in a sec. You're so right? Look, it's not just Premier Wakeham and Premier Hogan before him. We got to touch reality because we look at our debt, $20 billion debt, $1 billion deficit. Yes, it's important to help people. It's important to serve people, but we can't say we can avoid making choices forever or somebody's going to make the choices for us. Anyway, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, and I just want to, you brought up the debt. So right now the province has $24 billion in gross debt. That's just straight borrowing. Yeah. And then we have unfunded pension liabilities and group health benefits, and we have money we owe to the country. We have long-term debt within the healthcare corps. There's unfunded post-employment benefits at MUN and at NALCOR, and it goes on. And we've got these public-private partnerships, which are also debt, although they're like a lease vehicle, but we got to keep paying them until them. So when you add up the spreadsheet that I keep, it's over $45 billion.
Wow.
And our economy is a little over $30 billion. So like we're so far under it. It's amazing. And it started a long time ago, and it's baked into our spending. It isn't just because of Muskrat Falls, but like when we talk about naming reality, one of the things, like when they did the MOU announcement, one of the things politicians don't have the courage to say is, Labrador, you need to pay more money for electricity. They pay 3.1 cents a kilowatt hour in Labrador if they're on the connected system, not on the shore. They actually pay the same amount as we do. And like the same thing with the businesses in Labrador. There is lots of power in Labrador, technically, because we're not using very much of Muskrat Falls. We're only using about 500 megs. There's another over 300 megs that could be sent to all these mines and stuff. But the problem is it costs 25 cents a kilowatt hour to produce power in Muskrat Falls, and nobody's going to do it. And no politician is going to have the courage to say, by the way, maybe you're going to have to pay 15 cents. Maybe you're going to have to pay 20 cents. But, reality comes in the form of helping people realize that their health, for example, is their own responsibility.
Yeah.
And a minister of health will stand up and say, we cannot save you if you do not change your lifestyles and the food that you put in your body and how sedentary you are. And your mental health is so dictated by the time you're spending on toxic social media and all the different things that flow. And it's not blaming. It's just name reality and then ask people, what can we do to help you? But not how can we save you? Because that's impossible. There's just not enough money in the world to save everybody.
You got that right. I'll leave it there, Tom. Always enjoy talking with you. Thanks for the municipal updates as well, too. We'll chat again soon. Thanks, Tom.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right, that is Councillor Tom Davis and Citizen Tom Davis, as he rightly pointed out. We're going to go and talk about the disability advocate with Paul Walsh. Paul, how you doing?
Your voice again.
There you go. We got you
Tim.
back.
Hi, Tim.
How are you?
I said good morning. How are you? It's nice to hear your voice again.
Well, that is very polite of you, and we chatted not that long ago. You work in the space of advocacy and helping people, Paul. Your reaction to the announcement and the legislation that is already moving through the House of Assembly.
To me, yesterday was a historic day in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, and I've shared the news with some friends nationally, and they had the same reaction. I was involved with the Advisory Council on Status of Persons with Disabilities back in 2014. We were talking about this then, and then we came through and we had some commitments, but nothing had happened. And I had the occasion to speak to Premier Wakeham. I bumped into him in a hotel lobby in Ottawa, actually. And he said to me, this is how it works. Right? And,
it is.
And he said to me, he said, first piece of legislation, Paul, we're going to put forth is the disability advocate. And he's a man of his word, because that's exactly what they did. And I was beaming yesterday when I heard what the Lieutenant Governor read, and then to know that today, it's going to be second reading today. It's moving quickly. I'm hoping it gets unanimous support in the House and gets moving quickly, and that we get a disability, someone with lived experience that can really make a difference for the 30+% people in this province who identify as disabled.
Paul, it was that stat that really astounded me. Wow, 30%, and I appreciate that's a broad spectrum of different disabilities, and I'm not discounting any of the suffering that anybody is going through who is part of that 30% group. But is that a normal number across provinces? Where do we sit? That seems high.
Last national number I heard was around 25% across the country, so it's not that much of an outlier.
Okay.
The reality is, so you can be born with a disability like I was,
okay,
or you can acquire a disability.
Okay.
But if you live a normal lifespan, you will, at some point, identify as disabled. That's reality.
Interesting. Yes, because I guess physically or mentally there will be change in as you age, or you may have something happen to you.
Right.
Tell me this, Paul. What, for people who don't understand, why is it important to have an advocate, and what does an advocate do that, say, a politician wouldn't do or couldn't do?
So I'll go back to something that I used to speak about a fair bit when I was involved with the Autism Society. As you know, I retired earlier at the beginning of this year. Education is the one that comes to my mind. We have so many members of the disability community, children, who are having their rights denied in terms of full-day attendance at school, of not having their needs met. And this is a resourcing question. There's no question. There's no debate about that. But the participation of the disabled in our community is a question of rights. It's also a question of economics. So we'll talk about it from a school point of view. You have to have an education to participate in the workforce.
Of course.
We hear time and time again, shortages, labor shortages. Well, Tim, there's a huge untapped amount.
You and I have talked about this, in fact, before. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, though, Paul. Go ahead.
It's making the disability advocate can go in, do the investigation to say, no, we're not creating an equitable structure here, and as a result, we're punishing ourselves as a society by not being able to take advantage of the resources that are available.
And last question for you. Across the country, how many provinces have disability advocates, Paul, and have those provinces seen a difference in the services that the people they are helping provide?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I know they have one in New Brunswick, in Ontario, and BC, okay. I believe. Maybe Manitoba as well. There's some significant cases coming out, significant investigations coming out there in terms of the denial of rights of individuals to be full participants in society. So it does make a difference, and it does provide a voice and a lived experience voice that's very, very important.
Well, you know what? I love for you, as you've just retired, but seeing this come to fruition, you still got lots of life in you, but seeing this happen, what a nice thing as you had finished your time with the Autism Society.
Absolutely. I miss it every day, but it was the right time for me to move on and give it a new voice. But at the same time, Tim, I'll always be an advocate. I have been my whole life, and that'll never stop.
All right. Well, great to chat with you today, Paul. Glad you got some positive news, and many people got positive news with the announcement of the Disabilities Advocate. Take care, my friend. Good to talk to you.
Take care. Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Bye. All right, Wayne, hang tight, buddy. Even if the Lord Almighty calls next, you're coming on because you have patiently waited. Coming back with Wayne. He wants to talk about the recreational food fishery and some of the controversy surrounding it. Hang tight to hear Wayne's words. Back in a moment. Well, I've always fallen asleep there for a second. That quick hard entry. Tim Powers in here for the week. Glad to be with you. All right, before we go to Wayne, just some context on what Wayne wants to talk about. So you will remember last week, I believe it was, the federal Conservatives brought in a motion to extend the recreational food fishery from 3 days to 7 days. The 3 Newfoundland Conservative MPs voted to support it. The 4 Newfoundland Liberal MPs, along with other Liberal MPs, voted to oppose it. Fisheries Minister Joanne Thompson says the problem with the motion was it would have not done what the Conservatives hoped it would achieve. It would have been overly bureaucratic. It wouldn't have worked the right way. The Liberal government is working on it. That is me paraphrasing all of that. I may have some of that right. I may have some of that wrong, and you can correct me as you see fit. Maybe Wayne will do that. Wayne, sorry to keep you waiting, my friend. Thank you for coming back on. You want to talk about this? Fire away.
Yes, thank you, Tim. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem, sir.
Anyway, I've listened to the minister. Excuse me. I've listened to the minister give her dissertation on why this couldn't be done, and that was followed up by Tom Osborne giving his great explanation. But I'll give you my explanation, and I believe I am speaking for a lot of Newfoundlanders anyway. And the 2 parts of this that behooves me is the part where fishers asked to have the number of days extended to 7 from 3. And the reason for that, Tim, some part of the population who fish may enjoy the additional time to fish. For me and a lot of other people, it isn't looking for more time to fish so we can take more fish. It is because of the weather conditions that we're facing here and the practicality of fishing during those unacceptable weather days. And I'll give you an explanation. We're fishing cod, so when you locate, if you're lucky enough to locate a body of fish, then because we got light tackle, you have to stay over that body, get your hook down 100, 150 feet, and then you might have some luck in getting fish. But because of our weather here, and we're only allowed to fish on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
And they are consecutive, right, Wayne? It has to be done consecutively. It's only those 3 days, no exceptions. Is that right?
That's right. And that is the problem, because with our weather here in Newfoundland now, you have to get the right amount or wind that's acceptable for fishing with light tackle, so you can get your hook down and keep it down where the fish are. But when the wind blows, unless you keep your boat powered off and head it into the wind and throttle back to hold it steady over the body of fish, then you have no success. So we're stuck now with taking the gamble that one of them 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, will not have wind that exceeds what you can fish in.
Right.
So to get around that, we said, okay, well, keep the fishery open for the whole 7 days, and then with a little luck, somewhere in there, we'll get these wind conditions where you can actually go out and fish.
And you weren't asking, and Wayne, sorry to cut you off because I just want to make sure I understand, and you weren't asking for an extension of the individual 5 limit?
No. Well, not me, but I mean,
not me.
It may suit other people, but, I'm just speaking for myself on that regard. The way the fishery allocation is now is quite fine for us.
Okay.
The problem is the 3 days is a problem. Because
yeah, I mean, in 3 days in Newfoundland, Wayne, to your point, you could have all manner of weather. I mean, what you're saying to me makes sense. Anyway, you go ahead.
Yes, okay. Well, I'll give you the impact of that now on my little family. I have a grandson in Nova Scotia who comes to visit his grandma and me for 2 weeks each year. Mm-hmm. Well, you might know, or it was a situation last summer, the people who operate tourist boats were allowed to fish all 7 days. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I've been on those tourist boats. I totally I know what you're saying. And they could go 7. You could have 3. And I'm guessing your grandchildren didn't get the opportunity.
Precisely. He was here for 2 weeks, and in the Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the wind blew every day in them days for the 3 weeks. But on Wednesday, I could have taken them fishing because it was a beautiful, sunny, calm day. So here I am. I'm at my cabin in Terranova, got my boat, trailer, and everything here ready to go. And I have to say to him, well, we can't fish today because the mandarins in Ottawa are telling us we're only allowed to fish on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And he says, Pop, sure, there's a boat down Twillingate. They're allowed to fish every day. I said, yeah, that is true. So my option is this. Mm-hmm. I remove the trailer from the truck, drive 2 hours to Twillingate in the hope that one of these people down there have a slot on the boat where my grandson and my wife and myself can go. 2 hour drive. But I also face the prospect, and when I get there, they don't have a slot where we can go. And I'm not the only person in Newfoundland faced with this stupid regulations that they're imposing on us. And they should understand, and it was written, and I'm sure the people that said we'd like to have it open 7 days, explain to them why. Is not that we want to go out and catch 2.5 times as much fish as we're allowed on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It is because, if you're lucky, sometime in them 7 days, you'll get a day when you go out and fish from your small boat without having to keep the motor throttle off and somebody on the controls the whole time you're out there. They don't get it, or they're too done to get it, or don't want to get it.
It sounds, having worked in DFO years ago, Wayne, and seeing how, I don't want to perpetuate the stereotype, but you're giving me the opportunity to. Some people just don't get the reality of what you live, right? And trying to develop things that make no sense, or they're sitting in Ottawa and they don't get what the coast of Newfoundland is like. Anyway, I got to leave it there, Wayne. I thank you for calling back. I hope this year your grandchildren get the opportunity to fish with you.
Well, what's different this year? Our wind conditions here are getting worse, not better.
No truer words have been spoken, Wayne. Thank you for hanging on. Maybe the weather will get better, but you're probably right. It's been like that since we've all moved on to the island. Thank you for your time, sir.
One other short point.
Sure.
The minister says they don't have the resources to police the fishery. You know what I mean? Well, that's fine. That's what I want to hear. I'll go fishing the first fine day I get. To hell with them. That's what I have to do, because otherwise I'm removing myself and my grandkids from our culture. Because some mandarin in the bowels of Ottawa came up with a set of regulations that doesn't fit anywhere in this area. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good to talk to you. That is Wayne, and you heard his very distinct common sense view on what is not happening in the recreational fishery, the application of common sense. And Joanne Thompson is always welcome to call in and speak to it, as is Tom Osborne. All right. You know what? Let's see where we are. I don't want to cut Tom off. Tom, if you can hang tight, we will get you on right after the news, because I'm going to have to go to news in about a minute. So let's hold you, Tom, because you were a disability. You want to talk about the disability advocate and certifying doctors in Newfoundland. I don't want to rush you. So we will set this time aside for that great first hour of Open Line. We've got lots of space coming up in the program. Give us a call. There's a lot on people's mind. That's the second call we got about the recreational food fishery. There will be more. You want to talk about the RNC, you want to talk about the throne speech, we are here for you. But now, time for the news. Back shortly after that.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Second hour of Open Line. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. All right, just for the callers that are on the line, here is what we're going to do. We're going to go Tom, then we're going to go Piers, and then Mike. Hang tight. Or talk to Beth, and we can call you right back, but we should be not too long before we get to you, Mike. I want to get to everybody. All right, Tom, I kept you waiting. You want to talk about the disability advocate, disabilities advocate, I should say, and you want to have a word on doctors. Go ahead.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Just a quick point about the Iran thing. It'll take about 30 seconds. In 1980, I was stationed in Ottawa. I was a pay accounting officer. In fact, as you're probably aware, I went to university in Ottawa. That's when the Shah of Iran was overthrown, and Ken Taylor, the ambassador, came back to Canada, and he brought with him a whole bunch of Iranian money with a picture of the Shah on it. I was a pay accounting officer at National Defence Headquarters. He turned it in.
Really?
Yeah. We sent it to the Bank of Canada for a value. Of course, it had no value. And believe it or not, I still have one of those bills framed here at home.
That's it. What a story!
With the Shah picture on it. So, I bring that up only to show that what's it been 40-something years now, and here they are with Iran again. So, just a quick little story. The disability advocate's so very, very, very happy to hear that. That has been tabled. I don't guess it's surprisingly that 30 years ago, I raised that with Roger Grimes when I was working for him, and every single premier since then, I've been calling and writing and talking and texting and seeing on the golf course or hotels wherever, saying, guys, it's about time we get a disability advocate. And most recently, working a lot with Jamie Corab when he was in there. Trying to get to. So very, very, very happy to see that the thing is going, because, as you're aware, for the last 30 years, man, oh man, the issues I've had to deal with through the hub. And it got so bad, I had to change my phone number, because at 11 o'clock at night, I'd get a call from somebody And everybody's issues are important, of course, but you're laying in bed at night at 11 o'clock when the phone rings and somebody says, I'm being evicted, or, I got no money to pay for.
It's heartbreaking.
Groceries. So it is. And see, a lot of people may not be aware, of course, that, and again, I hate to use these type of terminologies of classes, but basically the two classes of people with disabilities. Like, I got my disability as a result of a suicide attack while serving in Europe. An acquired disability. I was already educated. I was already a senior manager. I was already financially secure. So I don't need the supports that people who generally were born with disabilities and didn't get the opportunities that I got to go to university and all those types of things. So the issues for different classes of people with disabilities are different, but still, everybody needs the support of an advocate to try and, move it forward. If we have a seniors advocate, then why not a disability advocate? So I congratulate the Conservatives for certainly bringing this forward. And I don't want to belabor the point, but the second reason I'm calling, and I think this is equally important, is that, and I've been trying to get people to ask this question in the House, but nobody seems to want to be able to do it. And that's the question: how many doctors are applying for certification in the province? How many are being certified? And how many? How long is it taking? And I raise this issue because I've been working a lot with a lady who came from Dubai and is finally, after 3.5 years, going to be assessed. But it should be surprising to everyone that all of those recruiting efforts in Ireland to recruit doctors, the overwhelming majority of those people are now serving on the mainland because we wouldn't certify them.
Yeah, this has been a challenge, Tom. I just to pipe in here for a moment, because ultimately it is the colleges, the doctors' colleges that certify them, and I remember Dr. Fury, when he was Premier, had talked about trying to encourage the colleges to accelerate that. But the governments don't really have that much influence with the colleges. One of the last times I guest hosted this program, I had a woman from Ukraine on who was a physician who was making the very same point. She's here. She wants to work. She has all the credentials, but the process was taking forever. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, no. You didn't cut me off. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I've been, oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe the process, because I'm so intimately familiar with it right now, dealing with this one particular lady. And I spoke with the former health minister, Tom Osborne. I spoke with Tom for 45 minutes over the Christmas period. And of course, he was the health minister during when Dr. Fury was the Premier. And he expressed his total frustration with the system as well, and the fact that politicians can have no influence over the selection process. And, but I think, again, to raise my point here, we need to ask the question as to what's taking so long and why it takes so long to certify these people. And then I found out from Tom that a lot of these doctors who were certified to practice in Ireland, when we found out here in the province that they may have been educated in a third country, we wouldn't certify them. Now, if they're certified to practice in Ireland, surely the goodness they're capable of providing medical care to us here in Newfoundland. So that's the question I want answered.
Okay. It's a good question because it gets you right at the numbers. All right, I gotta leave it there, Tom. Great to have you on. Thanks for joining us today.
Nice chatting with you. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. Good question about the certification, because the certification question does get you at who's in the pipeline and who could be in the pipeline, and we'll see if it does get asked and answered. All right, some really good news. The Nature Conservancy of Canada is coming together to protect 118 hectares of wetlands, boreal forest, and river shorelines along Harries River in Stephenville Crossing. To tell us about this, joined by Piers Evans from the Nature Conservancy. Piers, how are you doing? And tell us about this Harries River Nature Reserve.
Thanks, Tim. Any day that I get to announce the protection of a new area of beautiful natural habitat is a pretty good day, so I'm doing all right.
Indeed.
This is an area now everybody says hectares. Now, how big is a hectare? It's just under 300 acres, which also makes it sound even more impressive. But 291 acres of shoreline habitat, kind of riparian wetlands, and sandwiched between Harry's River, which is anybody local to that area will know, a fantastic scheduled salmon river, and to the west and to the east is the Bromore or Bromer. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's an expansive, one of the largest plateau bogs in the province, which is an area that's really important for caribou to Newfoundland pine marten. So this is and then just to the south of this property is, of course, the estuary in behind Stephenville Crossing, which is just an incredible birding hotspot. So this is an area that's so rich, got such biodiversity value. So it's our first property in Stephenville Crossing, and when the opportunity came up, we just couldn't refuse.
Now, Pierce, you defined hectares, but you got to define riparian. I mean, come on, you left that hanging there. What is riparian?
Riparian, thanks for that. Thanks for keeping me on. I gotta make sure I'm not speaking too much jargon. So that's just kind of the area in the vicinity of the river. So when you have there's kind of wetlands that are, like I said, to the east, big plateau bog. That's a great big kind of domed bog. Mm-hmm. But riparian wetlands would be wetlands that are kind of fringing along the sides of a river. And so this is kind of, you can think of rivers as such dynamic changing systems. As Harry's River has changed its sort of flow over the centuries, you can have areas that were formerly the riverbed, but then get kind of cut off from the main stem of the river. And so these are now little pockets of wetlands.
Listen, we use Open Line as a teaching opportunity, so we now know what hectares are more precisely. We know what riparian is. This is a good learning moment. But the other learning moment, Piers, is what does this nature reserve do in protecting and managing climate change?
Yeah, so we're getting more and more familiar, I think, as a province with the impacts of climate change, unfortunately. Fires, floods, and the like, which have been impacting communities across the province, just in the last year. And so if you think about ensuring the protection of these riparian habitats, rivers are big conduits for runoff. The property that we actually acquired was formerly pasture land. Back, as far back as the 1930s, we've got provincial historical aerial photos showing tractors and this little homestead that was there. It disappeared out of the aerial photos by the 1980s. But if you think about as trees return to this landscape, they hold a lot more water than grass does. And so as this property, this land, gradually reforests, it's going to capture a lot more of that runoff and prevent it from being released quickly into Harry's River, which then feeds into the estuary behind Stephenville Crossing, okay, which is a notoriously low-lying community. So anything that we can do to make sure that we're, reducing the chance of runoff just sort of rushing into a stream is going to reduce the likelihood that stream is going to flood and impact the communities downstream.
Well explained. Really, this is a great announcement. I think it is so important. And the first one, as you say, that you guys have in the Stephenville area. Thanks, Piers, for joining us today, and congratulations. Always good, as you say, to come on and announce some good news. Appreciate chatting with you today.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care. That is Piers Evans. He's the program director for Newfoundland and Labrador of the Nature Conservancy of Canada. Okay, Mike, we're going to take a break. If you're still there, you're on next when we come back here on Open Line. Welcome back. All right, Mike Torville's been waiting. We're going to get Mike on. Now, Mike, you wanted to speak or clarify something you had said last week. Go ahead.
Yes, Sam, good morning. I want to just clarify something about an event that the students at O'Donnell High School in Mount Pearl are putting off next week. I'd like to say first, though, that last caller was he could be a teacher.
Well, he explained reptilian, eh? That's the one that left me hanging. I'm like, what the hell's that? I didn't have time to Google it, so I was glad he explained it.
I was in the same boat. And no, I was on last week talking to Linda. We're having our second military appreciation dinner on the 11th of March. And, here, as I said, it was a great success. The 210 ex-military and present-day military personnel. And this year we're putting off our second. But there was some confusion around if it was open to the public. And the thing is, this is an appreciation dinner for the military. And so we're putting the tickets out. Last year we didn't publicize it a lot last year at all because the tickets went really fast, and we just put it out to the Legions and to the base in Pleasantville, and the tickets went like that, really fast. This year we did put out a poster about it, and maybe it wasn't fully clear what it was for. It was what it was for, but it was invited. And basically, it's just for active members or retired members or veterans of our military. And what the kids are going to do is they're going to serve a meal to the veterans and to the present-day soldiers who attend. And there's going to be some music from our music group at our school, and just a night to give back, just a show of appreciation to the military personnel. And
Mike, you may have shared this with Linda, but tell me and the audience who's listening this morning, how did this come about? Because I think it's a great initiative. What's the connection between either you and or O'Donnell to the military? Just give me a little bit of that context.
Well, Tim, I've been a teacher for 30 years now, and I do have some family connection to the military. And I've always been involved with Remembrance Day ceremonies at every school I've been at. I've always made it a big part of our year. I think we need to really appreciate our military and give thanks for what they've given us. And on a personal note, a couple of years ago, my own son joined the military, and he's basically so I've been wanting to do this for a number of years, and I used to teach at Beaconsfield Junior High, and we always did something there, like Remembrance Day and that. And a couple of years ago, I moved to O'Donnell, and I mentioned it to some of the kids, and they were very much wanting to do this. So I said, okay, this is my time. Let's do it. So we had it last year, and like the kids go down and help the ladies. We do it at Branch Black Marsh Road, and I have a great connection with the people there. They're been like family to me, basically, and so the kids come down and help the ladies and the gentlemen peel the vegetables, and then they help set up the tables. They get everything ready that day, and then that night the students come down. We have about 25 or 30 students come down, and they serve the meal to the military personnel that are there. And
that's great.
And the ladies get them with their white gloves on, and they go around. And like I told Linda last week, it's when you see a 15-year-old serving a meal to an 80-year-old veteran who was in the Korean War, that is there's no classroom, there's no book that can give you that. And it's and to see them talking and having little discussions, you know, I mean, about anything, about their life or about the student's life, and it's just a real night to give back. And so this is our second one. So hopefully we do have some tickets left. But like I say, it's it's for military personnel.
Yeah.
and I know the weather hasn't been good, and people are, these storms and that have put a damper on people's winter, and going out is kind of like a second nature now, a second thought. But so if you're a part of the military and you're a veteran, please reach out to Branch 1, or you can reach out to me at my sole email. You can just look at O'Donnell, and my email's there, and I will make sure that you get a ticket. And and we have a young girl coming in to be our guest speaker this year, and it's going to be a great night. We have music, food, and just some conversation. And this year, I must say, too, the Newfoundland Regiment is going to be involved. We reached out to them a couple of years ago when they got started, but this year they're going to be a part of that night. And I think it's a great connection for them as well. So,
I love it, Mike. That is so awesome. I remember as a kid when we were at St. Bon's. Now, that's not yesterday, but particularly around Remembrance Day, they would, because it was easier then to get veterans because there were more of them. I'm not saying I'm old. And they would come in and they would talk. And your point about a 15-year-old interacting with an 86-year-old, even just putting the screen down for a few minutes, right? And having that young person see the life that this soldier has lived, the service that he or she has done. I mean, that you're so right. This transcends the classroom. That's great, Mike. I'm glad you called to share this. I hope it's a big success. You call anytime, okay?
Yeah, it's just, like I say, Tim, and if you're free on March 11th, you can email me, and I'll tell you what, I'll have 2 tickets for you. So you can come and experience it.
You're a good man.
Give me an email. And
all right.
So, like I say, anyone out, and we have the tickets for guys. It's just for like veterans and present day soldiers right now. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Great initiative. Great to talk to you. Take care. That's Mike Torville. That's great what O'Donnell's doing. I'm sure there are other teachers across the province who are taking creative approaches like Mike. All right, we're going to take a break. Fred, hang tight. You're up next right after the break here on Open Line.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Haven't had this conversation since I've been back, but we're going to have it now. Complications in getting a doctor. Fred joins us from Grand Falls, and he's going through this. Fred, what's happening to you as you try to get a physician?
My problem is that I'm not trying to get a physician.
Okay.
I'm losing the one I have and have had for 20-odd years.
All right.
My physician is retiring on March the 27th, closing down his practice. Actually, he was on NTV News, interviewed yesterday, I think it was. In conversation with him, and I'm not phoning on behalf of him, I'm phoning in support of him and what he's trying to do. He has a doctor, as I understand it, wanting and willing to take over his practice and provide medical service to his patients, which is probably upwards of a couple of thousand people. I don't know the details, but as I understand it, either the Newfoundland medical profession or the government or whoever it is do not want this doctor to take over the practice and continue. They want the doctor to move into the hospital setting or some such thing. Now, I've dealt with a family practice, my physician for 20-odd years, or just about all my life, and I have always had excellent service. I have dealt with the Hospital Association emergency departments, and I have to honestly say, once you get in, the service has been good, but to wait 8 hours to get a prescription filled or something like that leaves a little bit me to think is what is the best service, the family practice clinic or the going to the emergency. In this case here, you probably have a couple of thousand people showing up at emergency that normally wouldn't even have had to go there. They would have visited their family physician. So in support of Dr. Cohen's efforts to replace and keep medical service, to me and a couple of thousand other of his patients. I think I would ask any of his patients or anyone out there to phone in and because this is not right, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll give the backstory here because I just dug it up as you were speaking. You, as you said, you've had Dr. Cohen for a very long time. I mean, he had found this replacement. Again, I'll give the details in a moment. But are there any prospect of other family physicians for you in the Grand Falls, Windsor area, or are they all just full?
No, there isn't. I have my name on 3 different waiting lists now, and I've been told that the best I could hope for would probably be in a minimum of a year.
My goodness. A year. So,
yes.
Look, one of the things the Premier talked about yesterday, he talked about, many premiers have talked about over the last number of years, is getting more physicians in smaller rural communities. What would be your advice on how you do that in Grand Falls, Windsor? Do you pay them more? Do you give them different benefits?
Well, I don't
you're
know.
Living
I don't see that as being an issue in this particular case because there is my understanding is there is a doctor ready to take over the practice. Mm-hmm. So I would assume that is not a case of wanting more money or anything else. This is a doctor who's ready to take over Dr. Cohen's practice.
Well, so, let me tell this. Yeah, you go ahead, Fred.
As far as I understand, the only thing necessary there was to be the government to say okay.
Fred, you're talking in a common sense way. That isn't always common in the approach of government, but it's a good question to ask why they aren't saying okay. Appreciate the call. Thank you, Fred. And as Fred said, if there are other patients of Dr. Cohen who would like to speak out, give us a call. We'll give you the air, and you can give us your perspective. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you for listening.
All right. So the story, as Fred has outlined it, is right. I'm looking at a news headline from the Telegram, story written by Cameron Guilfoy. The headline reads, Newfoundland family doctor finds retirement replacement, says NLS is blocking approval, according to what Cameron has written. For the past 2 years, Dr. Michael Cohen has delayed his retirement. The family physician at the Windsor Clinic in Grand Falls, Windsor, has spent the time trying to find someone to take over his practice. Cohen thought he'd hit the jackpot. He'd found an internal medicine graduate interested in taking over. According to him, the graduate had already completed a fitness to practice assessment and is a near licensure. Cohen called him someone who wants to go to what is known as a hard-to-fill area, which he says is a rarity now. However, Cohen says he had been told by the graduate that Newfoundland Health Services intends to place them in a hospital-based care due to inpatient shortage. This means Cohen's 2,000 patients, some of whom he's seen for 40 years, will be without access to primary care. According to Cohen, he's quoted here, they'll be ended up calling 811, Maduro, or using the hub here, but it's not ideal care because there is no continuity. That, of course, is just what Fred was saying to all of us. And as a consequence, it leaves the people of Grand Falls, Windsor in a bit of a difficult pickle. If you're in this circumstance, give us a call. We will try and get some answers from Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services as to why this graduate wasn't able to do it, how Newfoundland Health Services can dictate that. I'm sure there's legitimate protocols, but as I said to Fred, a common sense answer here would be helpful. And this coming, Fred's call coming the day after we're hearing from the throne, the speech from the throne, where we're talking about making healthcare service a primary healthcare service a key priority was the word I was struggling for, is very interesting. It's fascinating, again, too, when you look at circumstances like this. You heard Fred say it. So if they can't go to Dr. Cohen or a nurse practitioner to get a prescription, they have to go to emergency. Then what happens at emergency? That's when you get those massive waits, because people are going to emergency because they feel they need care. They don't have a physician who is available to them, so they and other patients have this long, arduous wait in the emergency room, and that can be exceptionally painful. The other thing I was going to point out, because it relates to this call and was part of the throne speech yesterday, a key element of the speech, I thought, was the mention by the Lieutenant Governor, giving voice to the government's agenda, that they weren't going to focus, they being the new government, weren't going to focus as much on bricks and mortar stuff. They were going to look at delivery, because, of course, bricks and mortar have a bigger cost often than the FTE, the full-time equivalent of bringing in a physician. So that, in and of itself, was fascinating. All right. We're going to take a break here. We got a lot of open lines. We've been busy for the first half of the show. Give us a call. We got lots of time to talk to you here on Open Line. Well, that didn't take long. We have a second caller who wants to talk about the situation of Dr. Cohen, or the doctor situation in general, in Grand Falls, Windsor, and that is Wade. Wade, what saith you? What is on your mind?
Just a second, Tim.
No problem, buddy.
I got to take you off the speaker because I'm listening on the radio here. Yeah,
oh, my God. Nobody wants to hear me in two voices. Go ahead, Wade. Go.
Yeah. Anyway, this issue with Dr. Cohen. And first of all, I can say that Dr. Cohen has been our family doctor for over 40-plus years.
Okay.
I guess 3 generations, my wife and I, my 3 daughters, and now their daughters and sons, our grandchildren. And when I seen this story, we knew last year that he was going to retire, but when I seen the story last week about the NLSL services not letting a medical doctor that wants to come to Newfoundland, wants to take over Dr. Cohen's practice, and want to put him into the hospital setting, I was so disgusted to see that story and read it. And the reason being, I guess, our hospital systems now our medical system is fundamentally not working. It's broken. And when it comes to recruitment and retaining doctors, it's failed us. It's failed the public. Dr. Cohen's got 2,000 patients. Dr. Cohen could have just retired and not worried about his 2,000 patients that he had. But Dr. Cohen is the type of guy that went out and recruited a doctor who wants to take over his practice, and because of something that was changed in 2022, because prior to that, if a doctor wanted to come over, take over practice, it was allowed. But something happened in 2022 that stopped this. Now, what gets my goat is this. Is that we've got MHAs prior to becoming part of government, and I'm not shitting on anybody. I'm just going to tell it the way it is. And I don't know what Mr. Tibbs or the other MHAs that are in the ministerial roles in Central Newfoundland are doing to try to, and Premier WOCM as well, because he lived there. He worked at the hospital in Grand Falls, Windsor. He knows Dr. Cohen personally, and he knows that the system is broken, have not been on that radio. Just prior to becoming part of government, they were on the radio every other day. And I know for a fact that Dr. Cohen has reached out to these people and have not gotten a return phone call.
Really?
And there's something fundamentally wrong. Absolutely. And I'm so disgusted to hear that. And I had a conversation with Dr. Cohen as of yesterday. And I was so disgusted to hear that. And I'm saying to him, how do we fix this? Yesterday he had the throne speech, and he said they're going to do something about health care. We're going to fix it. Well, start by letting these doctors that want to come in and take over practice with 2,000 patients and put them in that setting. instead of saying, well, we don't want you to go there, but we want you to go in the hospital. Well, I don't want to go to the hospital. For that reason, I'm not coming to Newfoundland. So they had that option.
I got to ask you this, Wade. So I hear you. I hear the passion. I can imagine. It sounds like, just from hearing you and Fred, Dr. Cohen, very good to his patients, very connected in the community. You do 40 years in one place. People are probably going to have a pretty high regard for you. What's the difference between now and then? 40 years ago, when you got Dr. Cohen, did you have other options? And those options don't exist anymore for you?
So I might lose you for 1 second because I'm going to a dead zone, but if I do, hang your tough because I'll only be a second. But what I'm going to say to you is this. 40 years ago, if I wanted to go see Dr. Cohen, I went into the Windsor Clinic, and it was upstairs of a pharmacy, and I walked upstairs, and I sat down, or I went to see the secretary. I said, is Dr. Cohen in? Can I see him? Not a problem. Sit down. We'll have an opening. And it was like that. And that's the way it was for many doctors in the province, I guess. But for some reason, things have changed. And now, I mean, for me to get an appointment now with Dr. Cohen, I've got to wait a couple of weeks for it. That's fine. Or he'll do the phone calls and stuff like that there. But for the last few years now, he's cut back his practice because instead of doing 5 days a week, he's doing 3 days a week, And but other than that, if I was really sick, I'd have no other choice but go to the hospital and wait maybe 12 hours. Or not see somebody and then go home. Because, I mean, I know that you go into the hospital, it's not what you see in the waiting room, it's what is in the back. That there, because it's ridiculous for people to be lying on stretchers in the hallways. I've never ever seen it. Never did it.
No, you're in the dead zone now. Wait till Wade comes back there. You back?
Okay. Have I got you?
You got me. I love this. This is
okay. Yeah. What I was saying, I said, it's not what you see in the waiting room of the hospital settings. Is what's in the back. Is what's inside. Those that are that are lying on the stretchers or the gurneys in the hallways. I've never ever seen that in my life.
Yeah, it's too common a practice, right? I was only a few years ago, was at St. Clair's with my mother, and she was going through something down there, and at St. Clair's you're seeing that, and the medical care people, the nurses, the doctors, the other people within the healthcare system, they're doing the best they can. So I just want to. I want to take the conversation one extra place, the same place I took it with Fred. So when you talked about Chris Tibbs, and we're trying to get Chris on for a different story related to the environment. If he does call, I will ask him about Grand Falls, Windsor, and Dr. Cohen. But, do you take any comfort from what the Premier said yesterday in his speech from the throne, that they're going to invest in health care? Or you've heard this too often to believe it is true, and particularly when there was a solution at hand, they're not grabbing it? What's your take on that, Wade?
Well, when I heard him say that yesterday, now I know Premier Wakeham. I know him personally. And he's a great guy, okay? But here's my thing. Put your money where your mouth is. If you're going to say we're going to fix health care, here's a situation now where 2,000 patients are going to lose a doctor, and we have a doctor that wants to come take over practice. And prior to 2022, like I said previously, that this doctor was able to do what she wants to do now. But from 2022 now onward, that doctor can't do it. It's got to be sponsored by NL Health Services. Well, tell NL Health Services that this doctor wants to take over practice, and that's where he's going, or she's going. Not going in the hospital. We got 2,000 patients that rely on this person. And not only that, all my files, all my family's files, my grandchildren, my children, are in this clinic. So where are they going to go after Dr. Cohen retires? Yeah. Probably back off to the mainland where I've got to pay to get the files, like they happened a couple of years ago? No, it's wrong.
Yeah, it's very concerning, and clearly there's a need of a solution here. Last one for you. I mean, what option, you talked about your files and your information, so Dr. Cohen retires soon. Are you going to be like Fred? Inevitably, until somebody's there, you're going to have to go to the emergency room?
Absolutely. We've got we've got like I said to you, I've got 7 grandchildren. I've got 2 daughters. My youngest one just passed away in April, and my wife and I've got to go in and register to get a doctor. Hopefully we'll keep or whatnot. I mean, I don't know. But right now we're going to be in limbo. But all I'm asking is NL Health Services, Premier Wakeham, MHA Kids, Tibbs, let's get together. Let's keep this doctor from going into the hospital setting and let that person take over Dr. Cohen's clinic and its patients. That's all I'm asking.
Or find somebody who can. But to your very point, if you have somebody who wants to take on the role and is keen to take on the role, that's the kind of person you want because they want to be there, and that makes a big difference.
But, Dr. Cohen, he could, like I said to you, he could have left. He could have just retired and not worried about his patients. Yep. But that's not what Dr. Cohen's all about. Doctors go out and recruit on their own. Very few.
No, in this day and age, people don't always have the same sense of responsibility that Dr. Cohen has. Wade, I'll leave it there. Now, Wade, I do have to ask you one last question. You're not driving and talking to me on the phone, are you? We don't want to get you in trouble.
No, I'm parked.
Good answer. As your attorney, I'd say, Wade. Thank you. Great to talk to you today. Appreciate you calling.
Take care.
All right. So there you go. We've had 2 in a row. From Fred and Wade expressing their frustration with what is happening in Grand Falls, Windsor, when there appeared to be a doctor that was in the wings that Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services, according to mainstream media reporting in the Telegram, and based on what Dr. Cohen said to the Telegram, there was a doctor that was ready to come. What's up with this? We will try and track down NL Health Services to get an answer here, and we'll try and get the health minister. As you heard yesterday, we are trying to get Chris Tibbs to talk about a caller's questions around Fortune Bay and the dump there, given Chris's role as Minister of Environment. So we're on it all. Look, before we go to news, I want to flag this because we started the show with this, what the Iran war conflict, pick your term, may mean to the Newfoundland and Labrador economy and the Canadian economy as it relates to the opportunity for our oil. This is from Eric Regularly, who is a well-respected reporter for the Globe and Mail. He's the bureau chief. He writes this morning, the would-be oil crisis has yet to arrive. The natural gas crisis is firmly in place. Oil prices rose again Tuesday morning on the 4th day of U.S. and Israel attacks on Iran and ever-widening Iranian strikes in the Persian Gulf region. But gas prices fast outpaced them. In London, Brent crude was up 5.6% to $82 a barrel, extending the 2-day rise of more than 10% and lifting the 12-month gain to almost 15%. Gas prices blew through the roof. The European price, known as TTF, the benchmark for gas traded in the Netherlands hub, was up 30% in the morning after gaining 50% during the day. Several economists have warned that sustained high prices for oil and gas could provoke inflation, making it less likely that central banks in the U.S., Canada, Britain, and the EU will trim interest rates. Another aspect of this, economists at the Deutsche Bank on Tuesday said that should energy prices stick to current levels, we could expect rate cuts to slow. So we'll watch all of that. You have a comment on that, give us a call or anything else. Time for the news. Back in a few minutes.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Listening to that weather forecast from Sarah, I think I want to cry. That's cold. That's cold. That's cold. It's March. It's not supposed to be this cold. But there you have it. It's cold all across the country today. So I know Sarah Strickland is getting excited because spring training is on and her beloved Blue Jays are soon going to be competing in the regular season for the World Series again. But boy, it's hard to think about baseball when it's cold and the World Baseball Classic is on. So we'll find joy in watching those spring training games from Florida because it ain't warm where we are. But We'll move to another Sarah now. Sarah King is calling. Sarah, you want to talk about the wage disparity between agency and self-managed home care workers. Great to have you. Let's hear your thoughts.
Hello. Hi. Yes, it's been a little while since I've been on, and it's, of course, been boiling my blood since the announcement of the minimum wage going up last week, which is exciting for minimum wage workers, but self-managed home care workers since February of last year have been waiting on this apparent review that the government is doing of our wages. And I was very disappointed recently to get a response from my access to information request about the review to see that there was nothing to give me, which makes me wonder if the review is even real.
Okay. So just for the audience and for me, please, explain what a self-managed home care worker is so we properly understand it.
Right. So when somebody is approved for home care hours, they're given the choice. They can use an agency. So, for example, Provincial Home Care, and Provincial will hire their people and do all the paperwork, and there's nothing for them to worry about. Or they can hire their own people, advertise, and there's different accounting firms that take care of the payroll part of it for them.
Okay.
But otherwise, they're doing all of that extra legwork themselves. And so we're paid from the same pot of government money that agency workers are, but self-managed home care workers haven't had a raise since October of 2023.
And what is and then, as you say, the agency workers have had seen their compensation increase. What led you to believe, or what hope did you have, or do you have, that a raise was coming your way? Because we do hear a lot of people say, oh, yeah, we got to invest more in healthcare and all aspects of healthcare. How do you rank where they rank you in the whole healthcare system?
Well, in general, I don't believe that society believes home care is health care, but we're not really thought of in that way. We're not really respected as a health care thing because there's no real education requirements or anything like that to be a home care worker. A big difference in what the government's argument is that agencies have requirements to be hired. For example, you need your police check and your tetanus and a few other, and your CPR. And it is true that the self-managed home care workers do not require that, but also most clients don't even realize that their workers are making less money because of that. And I found a document online from what was it? It was a questionnaire that was sent out to home care workers, and a lot of self-managed workers did respond, and they said that they actually did require those things in order to be hired. So there's no incentive to get those things, especially if it's going to be out of pocket. Like last year, I paid to renew my first aid because I truly believe it is an important thing. A lot of us self-managed workers also work for agencies. I used to work for an agency, and now I only work self-managed, but I was doing both at the same time. And I work with a client 16 hours a week, and his other workers all work for an agency. We're all working with the same client. So that doesn't if I can work with this client...
Yeah.
I can't.
Somebody else. I mean, two things that are fascinating for me in what you're saying. One, I mean, to me, I've seen the benefit of home care. You are helping people. You are providing them all manner of care that they need, and that is part of the system in my view. It's unfortunate that people don't view it that way, but I understand systemic definitions because that gets into funding and that gets all crazy. The second thing I'm hearing, and please tell me if I'm wrong, is it's still the the client's choice, is it not? So if do they get to choose between the services you offer and the services an agency offers?
Well, I'm offering the same service.
Okay. But does the client choose who is their home care worker?
For a self-managed worker, they choose.
Okay.
If you use an agency, you don't necessarily get to choose who comes into your home. And I've heard many stories, and you go out and talk to anybody who has had home care workers in their home, and just because those workers have their first aid and have their police check does not mean that they are being trained properly. Right? People are coming into homes and they don't know how to cook a piece of chicken. They don't know how to sweep the floor. They don't know how to help somebody take a bath.
Yeah. I had a cousin who had an experience like that. And you can't just, you have to have from what I have seen from friends and family who have used home care workers, the better ones are the ones that understand that each environment is different, each patient is different, each patient, sorry, I'm interchanging the language myself. And if you don't get that, you can have all the certificates in the world, doesn't mean you're any good at your job.
Exactly. And if there's more to it, as you said, than just that, and there should be an incentive to do better. And the minimum or the agency workers are about to get another raise. So since October of 2023, they'll have gone up $3.25, while minimum wage will have gone up $1.35 since October 23, and so self-managed workers are getting nothing. And the difference between minimum wage and self-managed it's getting smaller. And I personally, it's a lot of stress. Mm-hmm. It's a stressful job. It's a lot of work. And I really could save myself a lot of heartache and a lot of gas and just go down the road and get a job at Sobeys.
Yeah, last question, why don't you? Because it's really interesting. You clearly care about what you do, because you could do that other option. When you tell me in your words, why don't you?
Because I've worked in retail, and there's a place, and our minimum wage workers are super important, right? But personally, I've spent my whole adult life and my teenage years working with mostly individuals with disabilities, and it's just where I feel passionate about. But I have reasons why I do not work for an agency anymore, and there are many reasons why many people choose to use an agency or choose not to, and that choice should be there. But if we're not going to respect the work, the same work is being done, then people are going to leave. And when the influx of money from the federal government was given to the provincial government to give to home care workers, it was chosen to only give it to the agency workers, and that's not fair.
Yeah. Nope. Listen, delighted we had this conversation. You've helped me understand some more about home care and how it works in Newfoundland and Labrador, and you keep giving voice to what matters. I appreciate your time today, Sarah.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, that was Sarah King. You heard that discussion. Hope you enjoyed it. Home care is a reality for a lot of people, and it's important to know the backstory. And that's what we try to get into on this program. Okay, we got about 40-odd minutes left. We got some space for some calls. Give us a ring here at Open Line. Back after the break.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Well, as you heard Sarah say in the news, wasn't she before she talked about the cold weather? There's apparently some announcement this afternoon at 4:30. It's supposed to be big. We like those big announcements. We're going to get someone from our news team on after 11:30 to see if we know what it may be about. I mean, the foreshadowing may suggest it's about Bay du Nord, but maybe it's about something else. There's a lot of different irons in the fire that the government has at the moment. Maybe it's about the MOU and what they're going to do, though I think the Premier, for good or for bad, depending on your perspective, of course, has decided that the MOU is one he is reviewing, but is not one he's embracing. I am paraphrasing wildly there, but we will watch for all of that. Maybe it has to do with none of the above. We will get somebody from the local oil industry on tomorrow. First, to have a conversation about what the war in Iran and the heightened conflict in the Middle East might mean to our economy and our oil industry. Not that we are celebrating conflict, but there is opportunity for the Canadian oil industry, as the Federal Minister of Energy has said, the oil and gas industry. So we'll follow all of that. But I got to point this out. I found this, not because I'm any great sleuth, because I was just randomly scrolling as we were here on the break, and this is something we're hearing more about, men's and boys' health. We're going to try and dig deeper into this as the week goes on, but just recently announced the Government of Canada is engaging provincial and territorial governments, Indigenous partners, and key stakeholders to develop a men's and boys' health strategy. The goal is to create supportive and safe environments, challenge harmful stereotypes, reduce stigma, and encourage men of all ages to seek help when they need it. Improving the health of men and boys is a shared effort. The factors that lead to poor health outcomes for men and boys are complex and interrelated and don't begin in childhood. They have, when you go on the link, and you can find the link on the federal government website, some interesting questions there. What do you think about these? These are some of the questions they want people to submit written briefs on. How can we support boys and men in understanding and dealing with traditional ideas about masculinity in healthy ways, including overcoming stigma, feeling comfortable seeking to ask help? That's question one. Question two. Okay, I'll come back to the questions because I find this very fascinating. But Brian Medore is with us now. Brian, the Premier is saying, or the Premier's office is saying, some announcement at 4:30. What is the speculation, sir?
Speculation is that it is going to be Bay du Nord, the Deepwater Basin, the Flemish Pass Basin, discovered about, 12, 13 years ago, somewhere around there. I was at the oil and gas conference at the Delta when Seamus got up and made a tremendous speech, a rah-rah speech. Bay du Nord just ready to go. And it was as uplifting as a speech a politician could ever give. He sat down, and within minutes, Equinor came out and announced Bay du Nord is on hold for up to 3 years. Well, Tim, you've never seen a party turn to a funeral like that ever in my career. And so this, almost 3 years later, we think we're going to see Bay du Nord and the government reach a benefits agreement to get this project going.
How significant is that benefits agreement in getting it going? Because wasn't that some of the issues around this, the broader market, and whether now was the time to go into the market? What do you do? What is the significance of the agreement, Brian, in kickstarting this?
We think about $20 billion revenue over the life of the agreement. It's kind of hard to tell right now, Tim, because if you recall Hibernia, when that started in 1997, and the estimate was whatever it was at that time, well, that has like doubled or tripled or whatever since then with tiebacks and, another find here and let's go there. So once you have the initial estimate is 400 million barrels, I don't know, maybe that could swell to double that or whatever with the series of tiebacks and in that whole basin, which is about, 300 miles off St. John's, 500K, something like that, northeast of Hebron and Hibernia. So it's a deep water well. A lot of challenges here, and we'll find out, we think, at about 6 o'clock this evening. We'll have the technical briefing 4:30, and then the actual announcement, we think, comes around 6 o'clock. It looks like there will be an agreement to forge ahead with that project.
I love the 6 o'clock announcements, Brian. I think these date back to Brian Tobin, don't they? When you have a big announcement, you coincide it with 6 o'clock. Why? Because there are the supper hour newscasts, the television supper hour newscasts. Yes, usually 6 o'clock is a dead giveaway. Brian, you have a lot of contacts in the oil industry. You used to, you know that space well. Are you sensing an early enthusiasm for this afternoon from these people?
I think so. And just the on the 6 o'clock note, it even preceded Brian Tobin, Tim. It was Brian Peckford in the 1985 election when called the news conference for 6 o'clock, and he swore up and down to the networks that no, this is not an election call. Of course, everyone was there taking it live, and it was the election call right at 6 o'clock. So I think you're going to see that type of an announcement. You're going to see the players, the unions, all in that room at the Delta late this afternoon, and it's going to be, hey, we're back in the oil business, I think is the term that Premier Wakeham used.
Last one, because I know you got to go do the news. It is, as I recall, all of the federal regulatory challenges were put aside by Seamus O'Regan, the minister, and Andrew Furey when he was premier. There was a unique agreement set up to make sure that Beta Nord moved forward, correct?
Yes, and they're going to have that, and not only federally, but provincially as well. Sure. They're going to have to kind of reduce that whole red tape package. That could be part of this package. We don't know all the specifics. Wakeham was, when he was in opposition, lobbying for a significant amount of the work. I think he said 80% on the floating production storage platform to be done here in this province. Whether he achieves that, we don't know, but that would be a tremendous amount of work if that is so.
And we do remember that the Carney government, one of their first pieces of legislation that did get passed was streamlining major projects. Beta Nord is a major project. All right, we'll pay attention to this, Brian. Thanks for hopping on. Appreciate it, my friend.
Right you are, Tim.
Take care. That is our Brian Medore. And stay with VOCM. We'll be there at 4:30. We'll be there at 6 o'clock to find out what the next big announcement is. 6 o'clock, always a dead giveaway that a government thinks they've got a big winner for the public. We shall see. All right, time for a break here on Open Line. Back with more of your calls after that.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Lots of space for you, but before you call, I'm going to dive back into this the conversation that the federal government, the provincial government, and territorial governments are trying to get. It's the government of Canada who's starting this, the men and boys health strategy. I talked about one or two of the questions that are there, but why are they doing this? Well, there's a lot of new data out there that show men in Canada face distinct health challenges, including shorter life expectancy, 80 years compared to 84 years in women. They also experience higher rates of premature death, suicide, substance use, and related harms. 70% of opioid-related deaths nationwide attributed to males. Some sexually transmitted and blood-borne infections such as gonorrhea and infectious syphilis, some chronic diseases such as diabetes and ischemic heart disease, gambling problems. Men, no shock to many of the men and women that are listening, according to the federal government data, are less likely to engage with primary care or access preventative services, including health screening, with 65% of Canadian men waiting more than 6 days with symptoms before visiting the doctor. Wow. The differences are not simply biological. Social, economic, and cultural factors also play a major role in shaping health outcomes. For example, men are more likely to have lower educational levels and experience higher rates of incarceration and homelessness than women. This is one that always gets me, mental health of men and boys. And as a dad of a 10-year-old, I'm uber conscious. As somebody who has dealt with his own mental health and wellness, super conscious of this. But this stat, young men age 15 to 24 show growing concerning trends in their self-related mental health and rates of mental illness. For instance, between 2012 and 2022, the percentage who reported very good or excellent mental health fell from 70% to 52%. This is crazy stuff. One more stat here, then we're going to go our lines. The percentage who experience mental disorders increased from 11 to 16%. General anxiety disorder increased from 4% to 10%. This stuff is real, the improving the health of men and boys. There are lots of improvements we can do across a broad section, but if you have a man in your life, if you're a man yourself, a boy yourself, identify that way, pay attention to this and participate and encourage others to do so. All right. We are going to talk to Daryl Goff. Daryl, you want to talk about healthcare in Gander and MCP. Fire away.
I was going to talk about healthcare, not necessarily in Gander, but what I wanted to bring up there recently, the healthcare were a situation where there's a patient at St. Clair's. You might see that one in the news, and gentleman just about froze to death because of that.
Yes, I was talking about that yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. And I was going to mention about MCP, a family here in Gander. They had a little child that needed procedures done, and they had to go to the media because MCP wouldn't cover it. And then they finally covered it after it hit the media. And even the Minister of Health said it shouldn't have had to go to the media for coverage. And so what I'm going to bring up here today, like you know, this is two different scenarios plus others. Mm-hmm. What I think needs to be done with the healthcare. Now, I've mentioned this a long time ago. They need to send in an undercover boss to all departments and go in, see what's going on, why things are failing or not. Because when the undercover boss was on Canada, I'll never forget the CEO of the Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto. He went undercover and he went in, and when he discovered, he saved $3 million in savings without cutting any jobs or anything. He found efficiencies. And so what we need to do, I think we need to do the same format, because if we had this done, I know the Minister of Health, there's no way she can know this is happening, and you know, these scenarios. But if they sent in an undercover boss to all departments, maybe that window thing wouldn't have happened, or the MCP or whatever. And I think that's what needs to be done. And I mean that in a good way, to go in and have things working for the better, just to find efficiencies. And that's what needs to be done, in my opinion.
What's your experience been, Daryl, with the healthcare system? Has it been good, bad, or the same as everybody else? It's kind of indifferent. It's some days it works, some days it's hard to figure out.
Yeah, boy, I have to be honest with you, Tim. I haven't had no bad experiences with the healthcare system. I got to be honest about you. I've been well blessed that way, I guess. So I hadn't had no issues with the healthcare system, to be honest with you.
Got one other question. We've had a few, calls from Grand Falls, Windsor, about Dr. Cohen and the challenge he is having offloading his practice. He's committed to doing it to a different physician who put his hand up, or her put her hand up. We don't know if it's male, female, doesn't matter. In Gander, what is it like in terms of accessing a family doctor and getting their services?
Well, I'll give you my opinion. I haven't had no issues at all accessing a doctor. Now, I got a family doctor, and now I'm not sure of other people. I think the ones that don't have a family doctor, they're using that new system, the healthcare hub or whatever you call it. And I'm hearing like some people are finding that great as well, as long as you get the medical services. So here in the Gander area, like I can't speak in total, but for myself, again, I find it good for the accessibility and so forth. But going back to what you're saying about the doctor in Grand Falls and trying to transfer his clinic and all that, Tim, recently I sent into Open Line that it was Linda Swain. Over in Denmark, they got a 98% of the population got a family doctor. And what they're doing over there, like, you know, the family doctors, I think they work Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. They got to take a minimum of 1,600 patients, whatever, but they got a 98% retention rate. And I think a delegation in 2025 went over and studied how the system was working, and what a fantastic system, was working good. And then for the after-hours clinic, you got the Netherlands got it down pat. As a matter of fact, I don't know, they don't even have the emergency departments are not blocked or anything like that. And I listened to the audio on both of it. Now I could probably resend it to you again, but maybe what we got to start doing is looking at Denmark and the Netherlands and see how they're doing things with healthcare providers, and like they got a good retention rate. Now they got their issues recruiting doctors, but it's not as bad as what we are here in North America. So we should be looking at Denmark and the Netherlands. You know, look outside the box and see how they're doing it. But when I listened to the audio, it was on a show they did on the healthcare, and in 2025, a delegation of doctors, I think it was out of Toronto, that area, went over and see how it was working, and they were amazed how they are doing things, and it's actually working. So imagine a country like Denmark got 98% of the people got a doctor, and what they do too, they call it the I'm not sure it's a GRC or G or something like our MCP. And when you sign up for health benefits in Denmark, you automatically get a doctor. Depending on what area you're living in, you have your options where you want to pick from a couple. So, like say here in this province, like someone signed up or registered with MCP or registered with MCP, then you automatically get a doctor. And that's how they're doing it in Denmark. Well, I was listening to it. It's truly amazing, and it's so simple, and the system could be so efficient. And now I'm not sure about the Netherlands, but they got down pat for after hours, and it's worth listening to and take a good look at. And that could be something you might want to continue on with your evening show. By the way, I listen to your show in the evenings too. You're doing a remarkable job.
Well, that's very kind of you, Daryl. Greg is sitting in there this week, and he's doing a remarkable job as well, too. But
yes, yeah.
I appreciate that, and thank you for the call today. I will have a look at that because all this stuff fascinates me, and we're all connected to the healthcare system one way or the other. So love the chat today, Daryl. Thank you.
Yeah. Where can I send that? Will I send that to Open
Just
Line
send it to Open Line. Send it to openline@vocm.com, and they'll forward it along to me.
Oh, okay. I'll just resend the one I already sent, and I'll do it momentarily as soon as I get off the phone here.
All right. Well, I'm going, for health care maintenance, my own self-care. I'm going for a walk, for a run, so I'll just play it in my headphones while I'm doing that. So good stuff, Daryl.
There you go. You're being proactive. All the best to you.
All right. Take care. Yes, as Tom Davis said earlier, I try and take, as many of us do, the proactive approach seriously. Okay, that is that segment, but we've got one more left. Got some space for you if you want to give us a call. Back in a moment here on Open Line. You know he's getting big time when he comes with riders as to what I can ask him and not ask him. And you know who that is? That is our own Zach Powers. Zach, always good to have you. Gotta tease you. You know that, buddy. How are you today?
Doing good. How are you, Tim?
All right, I know what my riders are, so I'm going to focus solely on the throne speech. You and I had a chat about it yesterday before it happened. It's happened. It seemed kind of what you would expect it to be, a restatement of what the Conservatives promised during the election campaign. Let's go with your interpretation of it. Did you see it that way? Anything unique that stood out that wasn't there before, or was it a document that you thought you would end up hearing?
Yeah, it was a lot of what I ended up hearing, but what I didn't expect them to do is go line by line, department by department on what they plan on doing. The speech itself ran about 40 minutes in length. And it was there that if you could pretty well think of a department beyond environment and climate change, that was pretty well what they did. They went line by line saying that they were going to, for healthcare, for an example, they were going to do something for the travel agency nurses and find a better way for that, getting students better access to schooling. Restore finance and restore discipline, rather, as they call it, with the Minister of Finance. They talked about resources, just about everything that you can imagine. And of course, if you at least read or followed the PC's campaign, it was a lot of that. It was a little bit surprising to see how in-depth they were. I think when we talked yesterday, we talked a lot about how there may be this component of this fiscal responsibility. We talked about the budget yesterday and how some other provinces are dealing with a deficit. One new thing that he did say on the floor of the House of Assembly, saying that he was not going to balance his budget while others are trying to balance theirs, other families in Newfoundland and Labrador. So that was a big piece that came out of that, for me at least, as a standing point that this isn't the way that they're going to go. Instead, they're going to go and fulfill a lot of these PC campaign promises that I guess a lot of people out there may say, oh, well, most politicians do not follow their campaign promises. It doesn't matter if they're red or blue. Right. So for him to kind of go through line by line and saying, hey, we're going to do all those things that we promised we said we would is a little bit surprising.
Yeah, that line was notable on the issue of, we're not going to balance it on the back of our citizens. I'm paraphrasing. You had it more accurate, because we did talk yesterday about what they did in Nova Scotia and the fact that in their budget there are cuts, significant cuts to services, focused spending. Now, we haven't seen the budget. This is just a throne speech. Things can change between now and then, but it seems the Premier is very guarded when it comes to going down the road of full-on focus on deficit management.
Yeah, and that's what it really seems like. I mean, there's obviously a couple areas that will see cut, and we are going to see some cuts. And he did already take the first swipe at some of those cuts, as we saw with the infrastructure. I think about the new theater that was going to be built in the center of town, the hospital that was going to be built, the sports dome. Exactly, all those things that he said that he was going to cut. So that's his first wave of cuts. And NDP leader Jim Dinn also said as well, where else are you going to make these cuts? Because the money needs to come from somewhere eventually, right? It may not be this year, but it could be next year as well. But what we've been seeing, obviously, with some of the other provinces is that they've had to make cuts to public service. And the only other really cut that he said that he was going to make beyond the travel agency nurses was Memorial University and the freezing of tuition. So we could see a little bit of that this go around in the upcoming budget. There could be even further cuts to Memorial University. President Janet Morrison was in attendance there, and I kind of looked at her reaction as soon as they said that, and it was pretty blank. So you would have to think that she knows that something's coming.
Yeah, I can't speak to that in any detail. Of course, I sit on the board of regents, but the challenges the university has that are real, I think the government also knows that. All right, last one for you. Got about a minute because I want to go to Henry, who's on the line. You talked about Jim Dinn's reaction. What was the Liberal opposition reaction to the speech from the throne?
Their biggest thing is that they need to fulfill their promises. He said, as John Hogan said, he was the one who made these promises. He's got to be the one to fulfill them. One of the things that he once again doubled down on again, which isn't surprising, is the MOU, talking about this deficit and the amount of promises. And I guess a bit of the message from Hogan was, if you want to have all these promises, here's a way that you could have, as they say, $1 billion a year for the next 17 years. Obviously, this isn't something that the PECs want to go forward as it stands right now. They're going to complete their independent review, but that was the messaging. Hey, you have a lot of promises, you got to keep them, and here's a way to keep them.
And we will all be keeping score. It won't just be the Liberals. I think Newfoundlanders and Labradorians themselves, there's a lot of things there that they would like to see. We will watch it. Zach, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Last caller of the day, Henry. You got about 4 minutes here, my friend. You want to talk about advocacy for policy change for the College of Physicians? Go ahead.
Good morning, Tim.
Morning.
I will try to make it brief because I recognize that I do have a short amount of time.
And I will cut you off, Henry, so you go, buddy.
So since 2023, I've been advocating for change in policies with the College of Physicians and Surgeons and the College of Pharmacy. So between then and now, I've been fortunate enough to be able to bring this up to various directors, various people at NLHS, and I've been fortunate enough to speak with leader of the NDP, Jim Dinn, leader of the Liberal Party, John Hogan. But I will note that to date, despite half a dozen or so emails, haven't been able to get the ear of Premier Wakeham for 700 days as of today.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I was fortunate enough to have a meeting with an ADM, but I haven't met directly with anybody from the PC party. Now, there was a member present during a presentation that I gave to the All-Party Committee on Mental Health and Addictions, but no meeting directly and no response from Premier Wakeham. But to the policies. So to give a little bit of background information, you first need to know how information is stored. So family doctors use a system called EMR, and these EMR systems, they're clinic-based. So any doctor not attached to a particular clinic does not have access to that EMR. So that's important to know because doctors are able to enter into opioid narcotic contracts with their patients. But the College of Physicians and Surgeons doesn't have a specific policy around these contracts. So there's no requirement for information sharing. So this document can either go into a patient's physical file or it can be uploaded into EMR. But no other physician, including emergency room physicians, are aware that this contract exists.
Okay.
So when it comes now to the College of Pharmacy, we do have a prescription monitoring system, like a patient medical profile, right? The issue is that this contract from a family doctor cannot be uploaded into that system. So why that's important is because if you were to go and drop off a prescription today, this is Tuesday, but you're not going back to pick it up until Friday. Current policy states that when a prescription is dropped off, this is when the pharmacy network has to be reviewed. There's no requirement for a secondary check when the medication is released. So that would mean that between Tuesday and Friday, if your pharmacist doesn't take it upon themselves to review the pharmacy network when they hand you the medication, you could have been prescribed any number of things between those days, and the pharmacist will not be aware of that.
Yeah, that's very concerning, and I can see the challenges that would create. Harry, give you 10 more seconds because I do have to get off at the top of the clock. You can call back later in the week, but if you've got anything else you want to add quickly, you go for it.
Just the fact that, like I said, I've been doing this since 2023. I've been trying to get changes made. It doesn't really seem like there's an appetite for that, so I'm making this call to appeal to pharmacists and to family doctors to do these things of their own accord, and I'm also hoping that I might get a reply from the Premier from the half a dozen or so emails.
Well, you have joined Newfoundland's biggest conversation, as the ads say, Harry, so we'll see if we can get you one. Thank you for the call today. Got to let you go. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to Beth Fagan. Back tomorrow with more of VOCM's Open Line.